Welcome back to the Legacy Hour. This is Andrew Cohen on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. I love that song. I love the Beatles. The only CDs that I still have in my Beatles collection.
I don't even know if I have those on CD anymore. But
That's my CDs. It sounds much, much better. So welcome back, everybody. Here, Andrew Cohen with Ryan Moore from Northwestern Mutual. Ryan, before we run out of time, tell the folks how they can get in touch with you.
Email, ryan.b.moore@nm.com. Cell phone, 661-607-4951. I usually pick it up, so that's kind of a rarity these days for somebody like me. Website, www.nm.com/RyanBMoore.
Excellent. Thank you, Ryan. One of the things we were just talking about before we went to break is life insurance. And if you have a $500,000 policy and the unthinkable happens and a husband passes away and he's been making $50,000, $75,000 a year, you get the $500,000 if everything's good. You win the lottery, you win something. It's fantastic. In this case, that seems like a lot of money, but that might only be 5, 6, 7 years' salary.
Possibly. I mean, here's the math on that, right? So $500,000 death benefit for somebody who's making, say, $75,000 a year would go to the wife tax-free. So that's great, but now you have to make it last. Modern economic portfolio theory says if we take 6% a year of $500,000 or
$30,000 a year.
$30,000 a year to replace that person's income, we have a 95% likelihood that it'll run out in under 17 years.
Right.
So depending on how old your kids are, depending on what you want to do, retirement, that's replacing $30,000 of that 75.
All right. Now you can put it in the bank.
Could.
Do it yourself. You put it in the bank, you get less than 1%. Stock market up, down. But you'll advise people to diversify.
Absolutely. You have to fight inflation. And you have to fight the taxes on that money unless you keep it in a coffee can under your bed.
Right. I mean, if you get the $500,000, put in at 1%, you're making $5,000 a year on it. Probably still pay taxes on that anyway.
On the growth.
You're not making on the growth. That's what I mean, on the $5,000 itself. But you're going to quickly deplete that $500,000. It's really, really important to take an honest look at it and say, okay, I need to make sure that this is part of my annual, quarterly, monthly budget to make sure my family's covered. I just did it. I didn't have enough over the years, and a few years ago, I increased it, and now, because I talk about every single one of my clients with these topics, I now feel much more comfortable for myself.
Yeah, and the trick really is to then make sure it's set up properly in a way that you do have some oversight of that money.
Right.
You do have it flowing into a trust.
Right. A living trust lets you control all of your assets while you're alive. It gives you the pre-control to control it in the case of incapacity. It gives you the ability to control it after you've passed on and protect your kids and your spouses. You can do wonderful tax work. Putting aside James Gandolfini and taxes, you can help kids protect them from themselves, protect them from predators, protect them from future ex-spouses. You can do really good asset protection. So many, many things that is really not doable if you don't sit down and have a good plan.
Yeah, and to fund those things properly, the two most popular things are real estate and life insurance. So I know, Andrew, you've got stories about real estate and issues that come up.
A quick one that we were actually talking about during the break. One of the things, you do your estate planning. You have a trust. If you don't properly fund the trust, which is the big step two, everything's done, it's created, I design it, I put it together, I implement it, we sign it. If you don't properly fund it, the trust needs to own the assets. And if that's not done properly, or you don't have any planning, you can have a mess. I speak to, unfortunately, well, fortunately for me, but people over the years and over time that don't have it funded properly. And I have one people that I've spoken to, and this is sort of I think a great example. They tried to do some planning on their own with titling real estate a number of years ago, that it was grandmother's property. The husband I spoke to needed to do some refinancing. He and his wife went to do the refinancing, and they were told that there was a problem with the title. And it turns out, I'll skip ahead here, the deceased mother-in-law's estate still owns, 5 years later, 1/3 of that property. The brother-in-law may or may not own 1/3. They might have cost themselves some loss of basis, which is if you have more basis, you have the less taxes. You pay an income tax when you sell an asset. The husband I spoke to, instead of he and his wife owning the house, he owned 1/6 of his house and could not refinance to save a few $100s a month. So try and work with these guys to help them fix it after the fact, and it ends up costing more money. It's doable, but this can all be done with proper planning.
And it starts, I think point number 4 that we talked about earlier is choosing the right people. And oftentimes we're not, individually, we're not the right people to choose our own planning.
When we say the right people, we're not talking professionals. We're talking about who's going to be the trustee to manage, who's going to be an agent for your finances, who's going to be the healthcare agent to take care of you. People don't want to. They think they need to pick all their kids because they feel guilty maybe about choosing their son for whatever reason, even though he's not the right person. You need to take an honest look internally at yourself and say, I want the right people taking care of this, and it avoids family squabbling later.
And to follow up on that, I think it leads right to point 5, right? Reevaluating this every year or when life change happens. If your son is your trustee,
right,
that's great, but what if something happens and
anything can happen with you. If there's a marriage, if there's a death, if there's a sickness, if there are grandkids coming to the picture, milestones in life, going to college, might have mentioned getting married, buying a house, business is taking off, increase in salary. There's all important things to look at. You should really review it every year, every 2 years, and do stuff, the full plan.
And I think, Andrew, your and I's primary job is not just to ask questions. I think it's primarily to get people to slow down once a year, once every couple of years for 45 minutes, and just have a conversation.
Right.
It doesn't cost anything to have a conversation with somebody.
No. And I find when I talk to people about that, even if they're not talking about it, they're always talking, the husband and wife together, and they're worried and it's on their mind. I know when I talk about something and I write down a list for the grocery store instead of running like a maniac trying to remember everything, if I have a list, I don't have to think about it. I can get it done. Same with this. I can't tell you how many people tell me, thank you. I'm glad we got this done. I can stop worrying about it and thinking about it all the time.
Best part of my job when I leave somebody is to hear thank you.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, it has been an absolute pleasure to finally have you on here. I love it.
I'm
Phone
excited.
number one more time to reach you?
661-607-4951 is my personal cell, so please feel free to call. I'll turn it off at midnight, but...
Yeah. Thank you very much. We will be right back. This is Andrew Cohen with the Legacy Hour in your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.